All right. In this video, I want to talk about how Christians tend to be very soft and weak and don't actually have this, what would we call it? I don't know, an aura of respectability, I guess is what I would say. Because they don't really truly stand up for what they believe in, and they don't declare things as they are. They like to pussyfoot around things, right? And they act as though Jesus was some kind of fluffy-duffy hippie with this prissy kind of love, which isn't the case, right? Where Jesus called the government officials there foxes, right? He said that the religious leadership were of their father, the devil, and they were vipers. How are they going to escape the damnation of hell? Right? Yet, if I say the same thing about how, like, Donald Trump is not a Christian, like he even admits it, he converted to Judaism, he says he never asked God for forgiveness, and I call out, let's say, the Roman Catholic Church for being just a pit of vipers, you say I'm not being Christ-like, even though I'm acting just like Jesus and calling out the same groups that Jesus called out in the same way for the same reasons. Right? And you got this mindset that if you actually speak the truth and you call people out for who and what they are, that you're somehow unloving and not being Christ-like. You're letting other people, unbelievers, tell you how to be like Christ instead of actually following the Word of God and His Spirit in leading. Yet, or not even follow your own conscience. You're following other people's because you're afraid to step on their toes and to offend them. Well, do you believe that they're really in danger of being damned and going to hell? Well, then you can't sit there and pussyfoot around it and care about offending them. Because if that's how you're going to go about it, they're not going to be convicted that you even truly believe what you believe, because they don't respect you. When Paul talks about saying, basically, don't let anybody disrespect you, as he's talking to Timothy. Don't let anybody despise you. Don't let anybody look down on your youth, right? So in other words, walk in a respectable manner, right? And the reason why I'm making this video is because I've recently made some videos basically mocking and scoffing atheists. And I've seen some comments from Christians, at least they're calling themselves Christian. Some people I haven't seen comment before, but all of a sudden they're popping up and they're saying things like, oh, I see how, this guy is talking and how other Christians are being rude and disrespectful. They're not being Christ-like, and I'm sorry that you're dealing with that. And they start talking to them as if they're reasonable people, right? And, people like me are the bad guys. And it's just weird. Because would you debate a 5-year-old? Right? Let's say you got your 5-year-old son, daughter. It could be, I guess, a niece, a nephew, or a grandchild, granddaughter. And seriously debate them about whether they get to have cookies before dinner or whether they get to go to bed late or not. Would you sit there and debate them about it? All right, we're going to do an hour-long debate where we each have 20 minutes to put forth our arguments, and then we'll do rebuttals, and then at the end of it, nothing changes, right? Is that what the plan is? What would be the point of that? Where Paul tells us in Galatians chapter 2 at the Council of Jerusalem, when there was legalists trying to preach legalism and how the Gentiles had to be circumcised and keep the law, they didn't give them time to speak at all. He says, no, not even for an hour, that the gospel may continue with us. So he didn't give them time to say what they had to say because it didn't matter. If you know what the truth is, such as 2 plus 2 is 4, why are you going to sit there and debate somebody about it being 5? What is the point of that? It's a complete waste of time. The only reason why you would do something like that is because you got an ego and you want to sit in front of everybody and be like, yeah, look how smart I am. I know 2 plus 2 is 4, and you all are clearly dumb for believing it's 5. This is an easy way to puff up my ego, right? Not to mention that when you debate somebody who's a 5-year-old, they act very childish because they're not motivated by what's right or wrong, what's true or false. They're motivated by what benefits them. Selfishness, right? That 5-year-old wants to be able to eat cookies whenever they want. They want to set their own bedtime, right? They don't care about what's best for them and their health or anything like that. So their motivation is completely different. So they're going to respond in ways that are irrational and illogical. So what would be the point of a debate? There wouldn't be one. The same thing if it came to something like a talking monkey. Let's say monkeys could talk. Would you debate them about them being equal with humans? Well, you sit there in a debate, and when you disagree with them, they fling poo at you? Would you debate a monkey like that? And treating it as if it's equal to a human? Well, I hope you wouldn't. Some of you might, because there's something wrong with you. Clearly. So why would you do that with an atheist who is no different? They actually believe they're talking monkeys. I know we're the apes, actually. Right? Whatever. Right? They act no different. They don't want to believe in God because they think He's evil, and they want to be their own God, and they want to do their own thing, and they don't want somebody to be able to tell them what is right and wrong. They want to decide for themselves. They're purely motivated by a selfish, pleasure-seeking motive. Right? They don't care about what's right or wrong. They don't care about what's truth and what is lies. They care about achieving their goal and justifying themselves and getting other people to validate their beliefs. Just like a narcissist. Right? You can't reason with somebody like that. And I've been around the block a few times. I understand if you've never talked to an atheist before, right? And talked to them about, evidence for God. Well, have you ever tried to do that? How many of them actually accepted the evidence? They say, no, that's not evidence. Like when you just start by saying something like, well, life and consciousness can't come from something that's not alive and not conscious. Some of them will say, well, that's not science. But like, yeah, that actually it is. That's something we can actually test and observe and experiment with and get the same result over and over. And there's never been anything that shows otherwise. Well, scientists say otherwise. No, they don't. Show me one that actually says otherwise, that doesn't just speculate and use imagination. That actually has evidence to back up that life came from something not living, that consciousness came from something not conscious. Show it. Well, abiogenesis. It created life. No, it didn't. It created left-handed RNA that quickly fell apart. That can't be used to build life. Because you need the cells to be able to read the right-handed RNA to be able to build something with it. Right? RNA is a step to build DNA, but that's not life. It's basically the instructions on how to create something. Right? So the building blocks of life is not creating life. You putting wood, nails, and tools into a field and just waiting doesn't build a house. Even though you have all the building blocks. Doesn't matter. That doesn't build a house. And a living creature is way more complex than a house. So, If they can't accept that, and they'll fight that tooth and nail for no reason other than they don't want to believe it. So then you'll ask them something like, okay, well, what would be evidence to prove that God exists? Nothing. Because they don't want to accept God exists, so nothing would be acceptable. Right? Just like the Pharisees in Jesus' day, he did miracles, and they still didn't accept what he said. Right? He cast out devils. Oh, he's doing it by the power of Satan. He works for the other team. Right? They'll come up with any reason not to believe him because they don't want to believe him. And atheists don't want to believe, so you can't reason with them. And they're basically like animals where they walk around each other just trying to strut their intellectual humor by putting each other down and putting each other in their place while they mock and scoff believers to create their little pecking orders so that they're kind of afraid to step out of line because they don't want to be made fun of, right? So the only way to really reach them is to use their own game of scoffing and mocking because it's the only thing that motivates them because they're like an animal, right? You can't treat a 5-year-old the same way you would a dog, for example. You might actually be able to reason with a 5-year-old, but a dog you can't reason with. You have to use treats and punishments to get that dog to behave because it doesn't care and is not able to understand. So sometimes it has to go through something like pain. Sometimes there's children that are like that as well. If you've ever had children, you have more than one, you may realize that one of them you can actually reason with about doing right and not doing wrong and punishment. And you can reason with them, or you can just talk to them. You might have another child where you reason with them, they're like, whatever. You might have to raise your voice to get their attention and yell at them, put a little bit of fear in them, and then they like, okay, dad or mom is serious here. And then there's others where you have to go further. There has to be some kind of punishment, some kind of timeout, loss of toys, loss of screen time, whatever it may be. And maybe that's not enough. Sometimes it has to be, you have to spank them. They have to have some kind of pain to get through to them because some people are more and more animalistic. And they only respond to being dominated because they don't care about reason or logic. Right? And that's just the way it is. And that's how atheists are. So if you can't see that and you want to actually give them kind of respect and treat them as moral equals, well, don't get upset when they don't care and they spit in your face and throw poo right in your face. Right? Because they don't care. They don't care about the truth at all. They're going to ignore evidence that you present, act as though it's not evidence at all of anything, dismissing it completely, and then change the subjects to some other things because they don't care. And you may have to go through that a couple times before you realize that, and that you can't just treat them as if they're on the same level as you when they're not. They're animals. Like the Bible tells us, as you believe in your heart, so are you. And they believe they're animals. And that's why they act like animals. You can't reason with them. So I don't bother. Right? And then you can tell them, you don't care about what they have to say, and they'll still talk. Right? Because they're not able to reason. Be like, hey, atheist, I don't respect you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't care what you have to say. And then they'll still give you like 3-4 paragraph comment that you're not going to read. I've deleted so many of them over the past week or so. They're stupid. If somebody was telling me, I don't care what you have to say, I don't respect you, I'm not going to sit there and give them my time and watch their videos and hear them out and then try to comment to them, especially after they delete my comments and stuff. Be like, all right, this person doesn't want to hear from me. Whether they're right or wrong doesn't matter. There's no conversation to be had. Yet they'll still try to have a conversation. Right? And that's the other thing, is that you want to treat them with respect when these atheists push to, kick out the 10 Commandments, kick out the Bible, and scoff and mock Christians in universities and what have you. And they basically boot Christians who started basically all the scientific fields and developed them. They want to push them all out of these things. And then the peer review is all about what these atheists say is right and wrong, what agrees with them. And they basically don't give Christians the time of day. Anything that disagrees with them, they don't allow it. But then you sit there and you give them all the time of the day to spout their nonsense among Christians, when they don't reciprocate that. So how can you be so stupid? You're not doing what Paul told Timothy. Let no man despise you. I despise you because you have no respectability. You're a fool. You're just allowing people to walk over you like a doormat. They can spit in your face and you're just going to wipe it off and let them do it again. I understand the turn the whole cheek thing, but turn the whole cheek, just walk away. God, Jesus never talked to or addressed atheists, other than saying the fool says in his heart there is no God. Outside of that, there's nothing addressed to atheists, because what would be the point? God doesn't sit there and sing and dance to prove himself to anybody. And that's basically what they want. And even if God did everything that they wanted done, they still wouldn't believe. Just like when God led Israel out of Egypt and all those miracles that were done, they still doubted and didn't believe. So why are you going to sit there with these people who are unreasonable animals that don't care? Why? Why are you giving them respect? And even if you don't want to disrespect them, why give them the time of day? Most of them, if not all of them, especially if they're online, have heard the evidence. They know the evidence, they just reject it. Like irreducible complexity. No, that doesn't prove anything. Okay. Well, you got evidence of something going on there, that these things had to be created in such a way that they were super complex from the start, which shows it wasn't just random. Right? Everything had to come together at that same point in time to work together in order for this organism to work. So there wasn't like simplicity becoming more and more complex. It started out complex in the first place. That doesn't prove anything. Yeah, it proves that it was created. No, it doesn't. How are you going to talk to somebody like that? How are you going to treat somebody like that with respect? Because they're either really, really stupid, or they're just liars that refuse to accept the truth. And if you would waste your time talking to somebody and being respectful towards them, you're just encouraging their nonsense and allowing their nonsense to get into your own head. And if you're allowing them among your congregation, for example, in some kind of debate, you're allowing their nonsense to get in through the congregation as well. If people got free will, they want to go listen to these people talk and hear what they got to say, they can go do it. But don't invite them in. right? Like, you got yourself a family at your house. Are you going to allow these atheists to come in, or Satanists to come in, Muslims to come in, Catholics to come in, just come into your house and start teaching your wife and children about their beliefs? No. But, if your wife decided to go look up atheism and why they believe it, or don't believe what they don't believe, right? Or if your children decided to look up Islam on their own, yeah, maybe you let them go do that, right? They got the free will. They want to look it up at their own, but you're not going to invite it in. They look up stuff and they want to talk about it. All right, we can talk about it together as a family. And at times, it's a Christian family. We talk about these things together. And to talk about how ridiculous and illogical and stupid it is. Right? But to give them time as if they are worth it is stupid. Just like the apostles didn't give the legalists time to spout their nonsense. But today, we do the exact opposite. The Christians will let anybody come in and spew any nonsense they want. And it's just stupid. Our minds are like gardens, where the words get in whether you read them or listen to them through the eyes and ears. And seeds get planted. Those words are seeds. And we are trying to unplug from the flesh, the world, and the devil, to get away from all those things, to be a peculiar people that has God's word in our minds and in our hearts, where that's what's growing within us, is the fruit of the Spirit of God. So why are you going to take away from that and introduce the flesh, the world, and the devil into everybody's hearts and minds again by having debates with these morons? When Paul tells us that debating is part of the reprobate mind. Why entertain? Like, again, would you entertain the idea of somebody saying 2 plus 2 is any number other than 4? Because if you would, you're an idiot and you're wasting your time. So it's even more ridiculous to debate whether or not God exists with somebody. Because it's more obvious that God exists than 2 plus 2 is 4. I know somebody, atheist, but no, all right, whatever. I don't care what you have to say, man. I don't care what you agree with or disagree with. If you have some kind of urge where you need to share it, it's because you're trying to convince yourself. And that's why they need to talk so much. They need to talk so much, and they need so much attention. And they need to type out so much. Because they're not secure in their beliefs. So they constantly need to reinforce it with gobbledygook. They constantly need to justify it to themselves by talking about it, typing about it, debating about it, having others reinforce their beliefs, constantly getting validation and approval. Because they don't truly believe what they claim to believe. Right? Some of them are calling me out saying, oh, I got a lack of faith because I can't handle being challenged and whatnot and listen to people's rebuttals and whatever. Right? When it's actually quite the opposite. I'm so full of faith that I don't need to waste my time. I know what's true. Right? Like, I know 2 plus 2 is 4. I don't need to debate it with anybody because I'm afraid of being refuted. Oh, no. I don't want you to refute me on 2 plus 2 is 4. I better hide and remove your comments. I don't know. You're like, no. As I don't want to waste my time talking to idiots who think 2 plus 2 is anything other than 4. Right? It's a waste of time. But a lot of you, I wouldn't say it too many of you, but more people than I expected were coming up saying, I'm being unloving and everything. They weren't calling me out, but they were talking to the atheist about me and people like me, basically giving Christianity a bad name. When it's like, you don't realize that you're the one doing it. You're making Christianity look like a bunch of pushovers who don't truly believe what they believe. Because what kind of an idiot debates somebody on whether or not 2 + 2 is 4 or not? You wouldn't waste your time with that, but you'd waste your time debating whether or not God exists. That's entertaining the idea that, you could actually be wrong, and it could be true, right? You're opening the idea to even there being a possibility. But you wouldn't open the idea to a possibility that 2 + 2 is anything other than a 4. You wouldn't bother wasting your time with that. But when it comes to God, where you claim to truly believe in that, and that's your foundation, we're going to entertain the idea that he doesn't even exist. Now, I understand when you're not a Christian or you're a babe in the Christ and you're learning these things and you're going through these things. By all means, yeah, go through them, learn them, hear out everybody's arguments. I've done it. Done it plenty of times. I know all the arguments. I know it all. That's why I'm not going to go through it again and 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 again with no point. These people have made their choice. You can't force them and you can't convince them to change their minds. Right? It is what it is. And you got to accept that. Even if they're family or friends that you really care about. If you care about them, back away from them. Show them you're not going to give them time or attention or validate their stupid beliefs and their insanity. That it's not respectable enough to even give any time or attention to. Because that's basically how they would treat you in the universities, right? Show them that no, in the real world, your views are not acceptable. They're insane. They're stupid. Right? And just pray for them, because you're not going to get through to them. It doesn't matter if you have all the evidence in the world and you can put it forth eloquently and simply so that a child can understand it, for the simple to be able to understand it. They're going to reject it. That's why Jesus said not to give your pearls to dogs and pigs, because they are animals. They don't have the ability to reason. They don't care about truth. They don't care about right or wrong. They're going to run those pearls, and then they're going to do the same to you. And that's exactly what atheists do. You give them some kind of evidence, nuh-uh, and then they start mocking and scoffing you. Jesus said not to do that. But then a bunch of you come and go do it and act as though you're being Christ-like when you're doing the opposite of what Christ said to do. And the way that he actually went about his life. You do the exact opposite. And then claim you're being like Jesus. No, you're being like the unbeliever's view of Jesus. You're following a false Jesus and you're appeasing them. Because you're soft, because you're weak. You're pathetic. You're not respectable. And that's why I'm not giving you any respect here. Smarten up. This is not a game. These people are on their way to hell. Don't entertain their delusions. Would you debate a Satanist, a Luciferian, on whether or not we should follow Satan or Lucifer as God? I would imagine no, because I've never seen a debate with Christians and Satanists and Luciferians debating whether or not they should follow Lucifer or not. There's no debates on that. Why? Because it's stupid. It's blatantly obvious that we should not. That we shouldn't follow a rebellious creature over the Creator. It's obvious. There's no point in debating such a thing. There's no reason to respect such a thing either. Yet when it comes to something like atheists, or groups who are basically like atheists, like I don't give the same respect to Catholics as well, because they act in the same way, just like animals. You present to them the truth, they claim to believe in Christianity, and then you show them something from the scriptures, and they'll be like, no, nah. And then they'll start mocking and scoffing you, just like an atheist when you show them the truth. Atheists and Catholics have the same spirit. Basically, unbelief. They both don't believe the Word of God. Just one claims to follow it. Right? There's no reason to respect these people. Just like when it comes to these religious leaders who are like this, Jesus says, the blind will lead the blind. Leave them alone. So if you give them any kind of attention, it shouldn't be positive. As Jesus called them children of their father, the devil, that they were serpents and hypocrites. Right? Yet you want to give them respect as if they're our brothers and sisters in Christ. You're an idiot. And if you are just becoming Christian, at least you got some kind of an excuse. But a lot of you grew up in Christianity. Been Christian for at least 10 years. You should know better. And if you don't, then shame on you. Anyway, I'm done ranting about this. Thank you for your time and attention. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.